Well, this is The Late Show with Andre Walker and Asher Gould. I've got to be honest with you, I'm cock-a-hoop. I believe that Donald Trump is the most pro-British American president ever. I genuinely believe that because he's tough and apparently unpredictable, I think he will be significantly helpful in resolving problems in the Middle East and in Ukraine. By the way, my prediction as to what he will do in Ukraine is say that those areas that the Russian army has taken, which are predominantly Russian-speaking anyway, should go to Russia, but also there should now be a treaty that defines the borders of Ukraine. Zelensky will, of course, refuse that and say there's only two security guarantees he'd accept, and that's NATO membership and EU membership, and he'll get both. And I think the war in Ukraine is over. Now, you could say we're ceding territory in Ukraine, but the reality is, you know, my family are Irish. There is no point running around Dublin with a machine gun attempting to persuade the Irish to remain in the United Kingdom. If these bits of Ukraine, like Crimea, do not want to be part of Ukraine, it is just better to let them cede and go and become part of Russia. Anyway, look, we've got a few opinions on this, but let me ask you first of all, Asher, what's your view? Look, Kamala Harris was awful. Let's just be clear.
Yeah, let's be very clear. This has pivoted the world, and it's a safer place now than it would have been. What you're saying about him, he is half British, Trump. A bit like Boris Johnson was born in America, and he does have a love for this country very much, especially the Highlands where his mother's from. But what do you think is going to happen with Keir Starmer? Calamity Lammy. I mean, he does bear grudges, but he also is a businessman. But, they're not going to get on, and we've got it for basically his whole term. Yeah,
I think the reality is that if Donald Trump has a weak spot, it's for the United Kingdom. If you think about it, that trade deal, which was without question the best trade deal the United States of America has ever offered anyone, Theresa May turned it down. And Donald Trump was the one that was making all of the play. I think the reality is that Donald Trump's view has always been, rightly or wrongly, that the Make America Great Again movement and the Brexit movement are the same movement. Ergo, he is with us. And I think, look...
They come from the same place.
He just believes that people are disgruntled and that places are being left behind. There's going to be a debate tonight, I'm sure, about some of the suggestions for tariffs that Donald Trump's going to bring in. But what he has always said is that he is perfectly happy to have no trade barriers with countries that have similar wages and terms and conditions. What he's unhappy about is when we outsource jobs to places like Mexico where people work for buttons. Anyway, this show is driven by our guest co-hosts, and they are Phil Dave, who is Talk's weekend editor, and Phillip Ullmann, who is a social entrepreneur. OK, well, look, Phillip, I think it's fair to say, having chatted to you in the green room, that there's a couple of us that are quite happy about Trump. You are more sceptical.
Absolutely. I'm sceptical about the whole process, to be honest with you.
You didn't like either of them, did you?
No.
Just to be clear.
No, Kamala Harris had no policies or ideas, and...
she just laughed.
She just came in and said very little.
Yeah.
And she also didn't like Starbucks coffee cups, did she?
No.
Well, she's right on one thing, then.
But I don't believe that either of them are actually dealing with the elephant in the room, which is people and the ability to afford the cost of living. Same problem that we got in the UK, they've got in America. The normal person in the street can't afford food because of the cost of living crisis. They can't buy houses because of the interest rate hikes. And nobody is addressing the real problem, which is the economy and the huge amounts of debts that are in the economy.
And it's twice as bad. Like I was saying to you earlier, in 2007, we were actually slightly richer than the Americans individually. We had a little bit more spending money. Now they're twice as rich as us, and they've got it bad there. They're twice as rich as us now. Their average wage, $65,000. Imagine that. That's about 50-odd grand is the average wage in the States.
Yeah, but the actual jobs in general, which is a problem throughout the world, are actually fairly meaningless jobs. We talk about meaningful jobs, and I think a lot of the jobs that we now have in society are bureaucratic, whether accountants, lawyers, PR specialists, HR specialists. So what we've done is we've created a world with loads and loads of
services
of meaningless jobs, which means people are not having purpose and meaning in their lives and are not leading fulfilling lives.
You've been on regularly, but for those of you that are not familiar, Philip went to Cambridge University, he's a chartered accountant, all this sort of caper, but ended up in the outsourcing business, 100,000 employees, £1.2 billion turnover of a company that you owned, which is a fairly astonishing fact. But you saw real poverty, didn't you, in the outsourcing industry?
It hurts me. I saw suffering, and it's going, and it's going on, and no one is calling it. No one's saying, actually, we're talking about inflation is under... No, it's not under control, because inflation that's happened here in America hasn't been reversed, and therefore the price hikes that have gone means that people go to the supermarket. My wife keeps on telling me how eggs and everything keep becoming more and more expensive. And everyone's saying inflation has gone. It hasn't gone, and nobody's actually caring for people.
Okay, so then with that in mind then, speaking, as someone who is obviously clearly a businessman who understands these kind of things, help someone like me who is far from a businessman understand this. What is it that the leader of the free world, whether it be Biden, whether it be Trump, and indeed our own government here, what is it that they can do to get inflation under control, if anything?
Okay, so to me, good question. The key is...
Thanks, I try.
They need to understand what money's about. We've lost a real understanding of money, genuinely, and money is... people need to understand, they don't get it, is money is actually lent into existence. So what banks do is that banks literally just create money. That's not commonly...
At the push of a button.
At the push of a button.
That's quantitative easing, isn't it?
Yeah, they literally... Well,
it's not.
Creating a loan creates money.
We're going to have to stop here and say to you, right, what Phillip Ullmann has done on previous shows is told us this shocking detail.
You've not been videoing the show.
Because we thought he was on about quantitative easing to start with. But Philip, right, let me ask you this question, because this is unbelievable. I think that I go down to the NatWest, put a tenner in, and then they loan the tenner out for a mortgage.
No.
What actually happens?
No, I go into the bank and they say, there you are, there's £1 million, you spent it on a house and you owe it to us. But they don't need to get anyone else to deposit money. It's not necessary, it's literally magicked into...
So the economy has grown by £1 million, making everyone's money a bit worth
You've
less.
got it. So because of that process, which no one understands, more and more money is created, which means that everything becomes less valuable, which means that house prices increase. We think, wonderful, I made a return. No, you haven't, because it means the value of your money is actually reduced, which means that people who haven't got a house can't buy the house.
And you can't upgrade, because the next tier is too much.
So what happens here? Let me just say this to you. This is the bit that really melted my skull. So effectively, what happens is, imagine...
You don't seem to have been too bad.
I repaired it afterwards. Right, so imagine there's only £100 that exists in the entire economy, right? What then happens is the bank comes along and goes, we're going to give you a £10 loan, but now there are £110 in existence, which means you've lost 10% of your wealth by doing nothing. And the money...
It's a Ponzi scheme.
It is. The more money that's lent into existence, the more prices increase. But it's the same old asset, which means that the money you've got is worth less.
So does that actually go a long way of explaining why many years ago... I mean, obviously, I realise that sort of prices go up and stuff like that anyway. But does that explain why, sort of, how many years ago when cash was really king and most people were using cash...
Mervyn King.
Well, quite. But actually, does that explain why, sort of, in those days that it did feel as though we were a bit better off in terms of house prices were better, in terms of the fact that actually the cost of living was easier? I'm just trying to get my head around this, actually, because it's fascinating.
It was better up to 71. The dollar was linked, in theory, was linked to gold.
Right.
And therefore there was this hook in the economy.
The gold standard, and that fixed it.
In theory, even though they weren't always backed by gold. So therefore there was, in theory, a limit, because the dollar was linked to gold. Therefore, in theory, they couldn't print more and more dollars because they need more and more gold, and they didn't have it. And therefore, all the other currencies which were linked to the dollar were stable because America, in theory, couldn't create more and more money. There was a limit to the amount of money that could have been created, and therefore there was less inflation because there was a gold link, even though they weren't keeping it properly. Once Nixon broke that link, there was no constraint at all. The banks could create as much money as they wanted. That's why from 71 to now, the debt in a system, whether it's personal debt that people have for houses, for mortgages, or credit cards, and the debt that the state has just completely gone out of control.
But will Trump reverse all this? You know, won't the markets and the financial systems get back to a more even keel with Trump at the helm?
Well, Trump doesn't understand what I'm saying.
He knows business, doesn't he?
He doesn't. No, he's a businessman, but he doesn't understand money. Everything he's going to do is actually, to my mind, going to create a crisis, because he's talking about putting tariffs on Chinese imports, and therefore that's going to increase the cost of Chinese imports. Which means that if
that's inflationary.
That's inflationary, and if the US companies want to compete, they're going to have to employ US labour, which is more expensive.
However,
so we're going to get. He's going to. Huge amounts of inflation.
Trump did one thing last time which I thought was genuinely inspired. All of the major US corporations had large foreign cash reserves because the amount of tax they'd have to pay to bring it back to the United States of America. Donald Trump cut that tax, and I think something like $1 trillion flowed back into the United States of America, because you've got these companies like Apple sitting on $500 billion accounts in Switzerland and whatever. So I think that was not a bad idea, right?
No, to me, these are all rearranging
peripheral issues.
Peripheral issues, rearranging the debt just on the Titanic. The real issue that everyone needs to get their head around is money. We need to understand what money's for. We need to understand, as long as we continue to create huge amounts of money, there's going to be inflation.
But then that begs the original question then. What is it then in that case that, regardless whether it is Trump, if it's Sir Keir Starmer, any of the world leaders, what is it that they have to do to solve this problem?
I can answer that. Stop fractional reserve banking and stop quantitative easing. Stop printing money.
Producing huge amounts of money, limit the amount of money, and make it flow around the system. So that if you limit the amount of money, you don't get inflation.
Now, okay, we've done the economics A level, and Philip, we appreciate that. But I'll tell you what we'll do now. Let's watch some lefties being very upset about Donald Trump winning. Right, come on, here we go.
Dated. And you could just tell in her eyes.
Oh, well, but there's an interesting point. While you watch this, if you listen all right, we're watching lefties losing it. But there's an interesting point to this, because when you think people on the other side of the debate in this country and they don't have this infantilised sort of, you know, oh, I don't like, and shut their eyes and roll on the floor. And it shows that these people on the left, they actually have an infantilised sort of mind, don't they?
I have to say to you, before we go to this, my comment, I think that we should be prosecuting people who throw milkshakes and all this sort of thing under the Terrorism Acts. And I'll tell you why. Because I see terrorism personally as the veto of one, which is to say, I personally do not like Donald Trump. I personally do not like Nigel Farage. Therefore, he is not allowed to speak. And I find that incredibly dangerous. Anyway, we've got the sound now. Let's watch these people and have a laugh.
Dated. And you could just tell in her eyes. If you voted for Donald Trump, you're ugly. I think you're all freaking ugly. So not only won't care when all the bad stuff that's gonna happen happens to you, I actually want it to happen to you.
So the white want to be back on top. I don't want to touch another man with a 10-foot hole.
We'll need more time. I know some people don't ever get their citizenship, but we work so hard for it.
Donnie Two-Scoop baboon ass has done to our country with the division, the open racist, hateful comments, and just giving permission for them to be flannel-wearing, mouth-breathing, baboon, mindless. I'm sorry, I'm a little heated.
Yes. So today, I've decided that today I am sad.
But I pray to God for anyone that voted in this election, minority, doesn't even have the same mindset as Trump. I pray to God these repercussions hit y'all not only first, but harder.
How does this not go without saying? But white people, white women especially, at this moment, do not go to your black, your indigenous, your immigrant, your queer, your trans. Do not go to that person in your life that you feel is a little bit more oppressed than you are, because obviously you're feeling oppressed, and ask for help with it.
It's taking too long. Here we go. Short hair we go. Here we go. Here we go. Here we go. We're cutting it off because that's why. You think I'm crazy? Me too. Crazy. Just like all the women before me who were crazy. So crazy. You know what? It's been a day. It's been a year. It's been 9 years, 8 years, whatever it may be.
You voted.
Well, it's fair to say, Philip, that, well, both Philips, it's fair to say that you didn't see the connection between hair cutting and Donald Trump, did you? Yeah, we were slightly bemused by that.
There's a sex ban in Florida. The women are doing what I think they did it in Taiwan, where they're not giving the husbands sex as a protest for voting.
Well, that's well, the government of Belgium. There was no Belgian.
Well, they just said they've got a headache like normal people.
No, there was no government in Belgium for 18 months, and the wives of all the politicians got together and organised a similar protest. They said, until you do the coalition negotiations properly, nothing's going to happen. Do you know, Belgium?
Nothing's happened since, by the way.
Belgium had a government 8 days later. Is that just absolutely? It just shows how men think.
But it apparently ran better without a government.
It did. Yeah. It did. Well, the problem is with the Belgians. Oh God, I don't understand.
Not that we're tarnishing everyone with the same
Don't cause an international incident.
They
make lovely chocolate. They're already on the brink of World War III.
The problem with Belgium, in reality, is it's a country that's been put together by the United Kingdom, and basically they all don't like each other.
Yeah.
They just don't. Half of them are from the Netherlands.
That's how you can tell they're put together by the United Kingdom.
I'll tell you what. When I lived in Brussels,
good footballers, though.
When I lived in Brussels, it was really funny. I used to go to nightclubs. I mean, I couldn't speak a word of French, but as people said,
I bet you did.
Well, they said to me, nobody understands what he's on about in England, so it won't make a great deal of difference. But everybody who was 18 and from Belgium would go to university in like Amsterdam or Paris, depending on which language. So the people in their 20s hanging around in Belgian bars and nightclubs were like sort of inbred crazy ones.
Do you know, going to the point of with the video that you just played just now of those of what we're dubbing the sort of the lefties, the sport brat lefties who are kicking off about Trump being elected. Don't you think that, and I don't know that this is just my imagination, but it seems to make the most amount of sense, because I could never imagine anyone behaving like that, say, 20 years ago, or however long, what was it? Sorry, no, it's 25, 97, when Labour got in, right, for example. So when the Tories eventually were booted out in 97, so, and then they obviously New Labour came to power, I could never imagine anyone kicking off in that way. And sort of exactly the same way, even in recent years, 2010, actually, when Conservatives returned to power, I could never imagine anyone on the left behaving that way. But don't you think that actually sort of it could be symptomatic of successive generations basically being told you can have whatever you want?
Yeah, infantilised. They're toddlers. They roll around on the floor going, no.
You're basically told that, you know, don't worry, whatever you want in this world you can have. You don't have to work for it. You can literally,
but they're like 3-year-old people, you know what I mean? They've got, and they're now in government, a lot of these 3-year-olds.
But that's what worries me. So, I mean, like, these are basically the leaders, in inverted commas, of tomorrow. And it actually scares the hell out of me. That scares the hell out of me, not Trump in power.
We're going to be talking about social media a little bit later, but I have to say, my conclusion about younger people in this country that I come across is they don't live their life. They're making a documentary, right? So everything they do, I mean, you see people at concerts and you think, well, watch the bloody band.
Watch it.
But that's also a double-edged good sword, because
they've got the phone in their face just filming it.
And actually, that's actually exactly the same as sort of when I was lucky enough to sort of be as part of essentially in the crowd on the procession of the King's coronation. And when their majesties, I should say, were driving past,
nobody looked, everyone got the phone.
Everyone was through the phone. I held my phone like this, so it was just sorry, on radio this doesn't work. I held it to the side of my face, so I was watching, and I can still see it in my eyes.
Terrible shot though of the wall.
I didn't care because I lived it. Do you know what I mean? And it was an amazing experience.
I remember seeing the Queen in '77. We didn't have camera phones, and it was great. I still remember it.
The latest thing is restaurants that are Instagrammable. Right, and you see these people and you think, oh, for God's sake, eat it. Right, you know, and you just think... And also the other thing is, it's like, is my dinner presentable on camera? It's like, oh, God, you know, if what you are interested in is beautiful spaghetti bolognese, then you've got real problems.
But the social media has been a good thing, because now the media has lost control, and the mainstream media don't know what to do, and this is what it's resulting in. It's actually a great thing, apart from kids getting brain damage from being...
Well, I don't know. I mean, we are going to talk about social media later, but I wonder whether it pulls people further apart than putting people together. Anyway, Heather is in Gavan. Heather,
by the way, call us 0344499 or 1000. You can WhatsApp message us on that.
You're on talk, Heather.
People, it's an acquisition business for high finances.
You what?
There's a lot of taxation.
You're breaking up, Heather. Heather, go into the kitchen. You're breaking up. Heather. Heather.
She'll just let her. She'll just continue.
Just carry on, actually, yeah. We'll pretend we heard everything.
I'll tell you what we've done,
No,
which
I
is
agree, Heather.
the schoolboy error that we've done before. Let me tell you the best story ever from this show was when we had Alistair Chambers, the humanitarian aid worker, on, and we asked him to respond to a call. And he made a first stab at it, but what he said was slightly irrelevant. So I looked at him and thought, you've not got an earpiece, you've no idea what this person has said. Anyway.
It was the best answer ever.
With that in mind, Philip is going to plug his earpiece in, which he was not supplied with, and we'll come back to Heather once we've fixed her phone line in 2 seconds. OK, so Heather and Gavan, I think we fixed your phone line. Go for it.
Well, I believe that Donald Trump, he believes in high finance, acquisition and business and low taxation. But one thing about these businesses and industry, like in our country, they will come to America because of that, because of the low taxation ratio, because they want to keep their business afloat and they want to create more staff for their, create more employees for their companies. And that's the whole idea of keeping the business afloat, by having more staff, low taxation, more profit, more money coming in, and allowing employees to buy shares in the companies that they're working, so then they can profit in the shares that they're working in, and plus they will gain an incentive.
It's so true, there's no point in us even saying anything.
Their own wage and earning their own business and earning by their shares.
Wait, hold on, start again, Heather.
No, Heather.
No, I agree, actually. Yeah, no.
Heather, you know why we're laughing is because during the break, we were basically saying exactly the same thing.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Almost echoing every word.
Pod.
So, thank you so much, Heather. It has to be said that people have been getting in touch asking if you've borrowed your brother's glasses.
No, these are, like, I wear a jacket sometimes from the James Whale collection at Foster Menswear, but these are from the Johnny Gould collection at Scrivens, available at all good Scrivenses, and not really. Don't go to Scrivens.
Where does the frame end and the lens begin?
It's drilled into my cranium. Yeah.
Somebody said, are these safety goggles? Does Andre spit while he speaks? I must admit, when I have a bit of water, sometimes there is a bit of...
It does help, actually. 03444991000, but we've got...
OK, let's... do you know what? We're quite lucky, actually, having Philip with us today, because he was the largest employer of migrant labour. And the next story that we wanted to talk about is that the London Assembly wants to give free or discounted travel to asylum seekers and refugees. This is at a time when, obviously, fares are going up for most people. I mean, we were saying downstairs that the bus fare that used to be limited to £2 is now limited to £3. Yeah. Well, if you make 2 journeys a day and you're a family of 5, that's 50 quid a week, or what, £2.5 a year?
Well, it does, to be fair, it does depend on how old the children are, because under 16, then they wouldn't pay.
But they got around with it by saying, we haven't put it up, we've just raised the limit so they can put it up and they don't take it.
Yeah, no, but that's just dismissing responsibility, isn't it? Because basically what they're saying is that if we lift the cap, then it's down to the Assembly or Transport for London or whichever city you live in and whichever organisation manages the transport. They're basically saying that it's not us.
It'll be mainly London, and that's 25 quid a day, which is an enormous amount.
Philip, you've got an interesting view that we've discussed before about the cost of immigration, because we are now addicted to low wages. Now, look, at the end of the day, there is no point in denying you were one of the architects of that with outsourcing. You know, people on minimum wage and whatever, 100,000 of them. But here was the thing that you said to me the other day. I'm just going to repeat it for the benefit of everybody else. We've got these performance targets, right, so in a warehouse. And obviously, a young lad from Poland who's 20 is going to move faster than a 60-year-old British guy. But when you sack that 60-year-old British guy, he doesn't disappear. Right, he's now on benefits, unemployment benefit, you know, what about disability living allowance, because they all hit the booze if they're unemployed for a couple of years. He's got his housing benefit, he's got this, that and the other. And actually, in some respects, we'd be better having less productive Brits than bringing in this low-wage slavery from abroad.
Absolutely right. Look, we have high unemployment, lots of people on benefits, and my own experience of employing over 100,000 people, the majority of which were migrants, is that the migrants weren't looked after very well. So these were jobs in warehouses that were paying a minimum wage. The workers were travelling 18, 90 miles in a shift. Often they would live in shoddy accommodation, bed sharing. One person would sleep in the bed during the day, another during the night.
Some were illegal in gardens, weren't they, like shacks and stuff like that?
They'd be living off a packet of biscuits. Their family would
Nothing
often
wrong with that.
A packet of biscuits a day is not the healthiest diet.
No, it's not.
But it has to be said. It has to be said that there are parts of Moldova in the former Soviet Union where 60% of children are being brought up by their grandparents because mum and dad have left the country. Now, you know, we always talk about these young men coming from Syria, these young men coming from Eritrea, these young men coming from Albania, but we very infrequently think about, I mean, obviously, the blokes leaving on their own, they're not fleeing a war, that's a load of old garbage, but the wives and children are left in Albania. I mean, the Polish economy virtually collapsed when 2.5 million people left the country in 1 year, and we never think about the cost of immigration in those terms.
Well, might I also point out as well, what kind of man flees war and leaves their wives and children to fight? But anyway,
No, but the point is we don't recognise the importance of family and community and being with your family, and that's whether it's here or in Eastern Europe. So we have to start focusing on actually ensuring that our own people can make a decent wage, can look after their families, and the migrants aren't looked after either because they're separated from the families.
You think, in fact, you concluded. No, actually, let's go further than that. You're one of Britain's most successful businessmen. You walked away from that business because you felt that the immigrant labour you were bringing to the country was bad for Poland, bad for Britain, bad for British workers, bad for the Eastern European workers that were coming over, bad for kids, just bad for everything.
It's bad for everyone. There's no question. We have to employ UK workers. We've got to revitalise the UK economy. We stopped manufacturing because of the problems. We allowed companies to make profit. They make more profit by actually exporting the jobs to China. But they can import workers who are paid a minimum wage and have their family away from them in Eastern Europe. All of that is not looking after the UK population. It's
and
not
they're on benefits, sort of universal credit as well, and then their kids are on benefits.
And the trouble is that the UK employees earn more on benefits, housing benefits, tax credits than they would earn in the job.
You can't continue like that.
Which means that people are not having meaningful jobs and being paid a meaningful wage.
The other thing that's obvious about all this immigration is when people go, these people come to the country to do the jobs we don't want. Well, why don't we want them? The money's terrible. The terms and conditions are terrible. The job security's terrible. So what you're saying is
and it goes back to what I was saying before about we're forever telling the successive generations you can have whatever you want. You don't have to work for it. It's all symptomatic.
I'll tell you what was quite interesting though. Remember, I went on a TV show ages ago, and I went with a friend of mine who's a partner at a major law firm now. Really interesting. When you saw people who'd been quite successful, they'd all done things like student jobs in McDonald's and all that sort of stuff. It was the people who were long-term unemployed who were going, it's beneath me to work in this job. I've got a thyroid problem, is what they always say. But
that's because we don't value these jobs. They're important jobs. We don't pay enough. There's not enough dignity associated with doing these jobs. We look down our noses. We rate lawyers, accountants, PR consultants, management consultants, whereas the real work is done by people who are actually doing a job that needs to be done. Even people who are collecting garbage, people who are actually working in factories, people who are teaching or caring. These are the jobs that are the most important jobs. And that we don't value them, we don't pay enough of them, we don't look after them.
They're not as skilled though, are they? I mean, if you're a plumber or electrician, you can make 100 grand. So one of those people could do a couple of exams, it's quite hard, but then they could elevate themselves. But what you're talking about, it's a low skill, anyone can do it.
But what we're doing is...
you get paid more.
Philip, can I jump in?
Absolutely.
Sorry, just to say this. I think the point that you've communicated to me, Philip, is this. We create these jobs that are awful, that nobody would want. And when nobody wants them, we go, I know, here's the solution, Albania.
Correct.
And you think, no. why don't we actually make these jobs worth having? Wouldn't that make more sense? And the other thing, sorry, Philip, to rant, and I'll let you respond, but of course the worst bit about it is, the only way we can pay people this little is by subsidising them through the benefit system. So all you're doing is you're giving the likes of Jeff Bezos, you know, £1 billion because he's able to pay minimum wage. He's only able to pay. I'm not just having to go at Amazon. They're all the same, Asda and whatever. But the only reason these companies can pay the minimum wage is because I subsidise it. I mean, I was sat there I walked into Starbucks the other day in Windsor, and I thought, you know, the reason you can sell a coffee for £4 is because the in-work benefits that I pay to the guy making the coffee mean that I pay £4 as well.
And then the British people on the dole are on the equivalent of about 50 grand income, just sitting in their beds getting social services and rent. So they don't want to get a job.
So, and frankly, why would you? I'm not being funny. Why,
no,
if you could earn £50,000 for doing nothing? Why would you?
Although it has to be said, people do want jobs. So, Philip,
it's not sustainable.
No, people need purpose in their lives.
I agree.
So to sit around doing nothing and don't feature is not.
They could get a hobby.
But people need to care for other people, and they need to feel valued. They need to feel that they're achieving something. And sitting around doing nothing, earning £50,000 would not be meeting their needs. Well,
that's another point. Carers don't get enough money. Family members.
There's so many. I mean, we're not educating our kids properly. What about an educational system where we have one-to-one, where we have, rather than one teacher for 30 pupils, we have one teacher per pupil, so that we can start to give them a bespoke education which meets their needs? What about having enough carers?
Like the Queen.
There's plenty of people. See, what we've done over the years is we've created huge amounts of meaningless jobs.
Yeah,
because
and meaningless degrees to go.
Oh, absolutely right. It's completely
That's all part of the plan, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, engineering at Cambridge is rubbish.
Of course it is.
I'm joking.
Of course it is. No, but effectively, Keynes predicted in the 30s that productivity would increase by 800% by this period, which means that people wouldn't need to work. And in fact, it's happened because we have increased the productivity, but people are still working, and they're useless jobs, because what we've done is allowed the creation of lots of meaningless jobs by creating bureaucracy, accountants, lawyers.
But do you remember when we made cars and stuff, and the British worker was rubbish with the unions? You know what I mean? We made crap cars compared to the Germans. So was there something in our psychology?
No, we could have perfected.
But why didn't we? They were rubbish compared to BMWs. We had the Austin Allegro. I mean, what is going on? And
the Austin Allegro was a crime.
But there is something about that, isn't there? The pride.
But we weren't aligned. There wasn't alignment between the unions and the workers and management, and we had a misaligned system where they got more alignment. But effectively, we've created these lots and lots and lots of meaningless jobs, and a lot of people may be paid a good salary but would recognise that they're actually not meaningful, and therefore we have to go back to actually think, what is a meaningful job?
But here's the depressing bit. Your story is actually, as it happens, just happens to be symptomatic. So you went to Cambridge University to study engineering. Great. And the reason is because your dad owned a wire factory in Watford, right? Now we fast forward. Your success in life was not the wire factory, which in fact is now a housing estate.
Yes,
because nobody makes anything anymore. And actually, where you've made your money is on the sort of outsourcing which is destroying the British economy. Now, I'm not having to go at you because you've come on this show to be quite honest about it. But what has gone wrong that we've ended up? Your ambition in life was to take over a wire business that no longer exists. And what you actually end up doing was the complete opposite of your hopes and dreams, and that was what made you rich.
Because we've allowed people to do whatever they want when they're running a company for their own interest. They don't need to look after their employees. They don't need to enable the employees to have a happy family and a happy community.
But would you start?
They're allowed to make as much money as they want for themselves, which means they do whatever they can to maximise their own interest, and they don't care about anybody.
But would you start? And a lot of people hide behind the workers' rights bill, don't they? So they'll sort of say, "Oh no, we're lovely. We're all equal opportunities. We've got workers' rights in this establishment, and therefore we're an amazing."
I'll tell you one of the things that is the worst mistake we make, and I saw it when I worked at the European Parliament. What happens is, and Labour are the people that get fooled into this more often than anybody apart from the EU. What happens is a big company will come along and go, our industry wants to raise its standards. Even though it'll cost us a bit extra, we're willing to do it. And they basically bring in a new standards thing, which maybe takes one or two people full-time to deal with this. And they go, yes, it will cost us an extra 100,000 a year, but we're willing to do it because we believe in standards. What they don't tell you is the companies that have 100,000 employees can suck it up. The people with 5 employees are bankrupted by it, right? And it happens time and time again.
It's the same as you asked me, Ash, why UK industry didn't innovate in the way Japan. Because if everybody's fighting everyone else, you're not aligned. You're not building relationships, and you're not actually trying to look after each other and to build and community. And I think the other countries were better at that stage. They worked together, and they started to design in a way that we couldn't.
OK, we're going to go to the break, but when we come back, this is a really interesting story. I'm so glad we're covering it. Australia has said that they are going to ban children under 16 from engaging in social media. I have to say, I'm starting to think that that is a brilliant idea. But anyway, we'll be chatting about it straight after this. Commonly known as Phil. OK, this is Talk.
Who are you calling common?
No. Yeah, well, so my confirmation name is John Paul. What is your religious name? Go on, Phil Dave.
It's in the Hebrew name that I was given is Perush ben Yerachmiel.
Commonly known as Phil.
You should use that on air. It's much better.
I don't really think it's very fair to ask the people doing vision to try and put that on.
I tell you what, I love when you've got Chinese friends and the name's like Chu Ho Pua and known as Keith.
No, but actually, it's more often than not, actually, and I quite like this in Chinese culture, where the surname is actually the first name. Mm. So I think that's quite nice.
No good in a phone book, though, is it?
Anyway, so Labour. I mean, I can't believe I'm even looking at this on the list. But Labour have lied again, right? What? But this isn't locking up political opponents or indeed trying to kill the elderly. What they've done now is they're trying to ruin the opportunity for young people to go to university. Well, why not? Well, after you've killed Granny and locked up Mum and Dad, you might as well throw the kids out.
Only young working class people. Everyone else can. Because remember, this is the Labour Party.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, look, Keir Starmer's all right, because if he's struggling for the tuition fees, he'll just phone up Lord Ali. OK, Case Hussein is a student and a political commentator. Case, tell us how bad it is. Cash.
Well, good to be on the show. I'm aggravated, agitated and annoyed by this. It's absolutely disgusting. There's been an increase of £285 on tuition fees.
Well, someone's got to pay the Vice-Chancellors the telephone numbers.
Well, some of them are on 300k, over 300k for doing nothing.
What makes me laugh is the vice-chancellors that are all on £500,000 are all the crap universities. Like, if it was the good ones, it'd be more interesting.
Apparently, a lot of it's on Zoom now. You don't even get to go to lecture theatres.
No, a lot of it's online.
Ridiculous. You can just play a video like Open University.
Can I ask you, so, look, tuition fees have gone up. Some people will say you get loans towards them. Other people will say you deserve it, rah, rah, rah. But here's my question to you. It's a wider thing. How hard is it to try and make it as a young person today? Because it seems to me that everything is stacked against you. Yeah. Wages are going down. Inflation's going up. Houses are impossible to buy. Tuition fees does you over. When you pay the tuition fees, they don't even bother opening the university and do it via Zoom. You've all been placed under house arrest as a result of COVID for a couple of years. I mean,
look, he's got to wear his scarf indoors. Poor guy.
Do you not feel? Do you feel negative?
I mean, I'm filled with pessimism. I mean, what is good about being a young person? We were blamed for the pandemic. We had no teaching. And now, the average graduate will pay £128,000 back. How on earth are we meant to afford a home? And, when you start doing well, when you be aspirational, the government just taxes you, so there is no benefit being a young person.
And you've still got to pay rent, so you can't get the money. I mean, I know a couple of youngsters who we have on this show in their 20s make a big... got a top job and they have to rent with 3 other people.
Well, I remember when I lived in London and I was 25, I shared with somebody who was a trainee solicitor at Clifford Chance, a friend of mine who was a corporate barrister, admittedly a 25-year-old one rather than a 45-year-old one, and I was a senior parliamentary assistant at the House of Commons. And you think... those 3 people are having to rent and share a flat.
And 10 years before, you could just go and buy a house, the same person in that situation.
Who are the people that are doing well?
I remember when I went to university, the tuition, we paid nothing at all. The tuition was completely free. Yeah. The accommodation was completely free. And not only that, Some people were given grants. And if you're doing what society needs, I completely agree. It's crazy that you're building up debt. The whole system, and now his pound amount is increasing. I think it's disgraceful. I'm with you.
But Britain is very much the outlier in Europe.
If you were 20 years older, you would have left university with 120,000 in debt, being a mortgage for a 4-bedroom house. What you've actually got is no house. The wages are going down in real terms.
Mickey Mouse degree.
Exactly. I mean, I just think
you can actually do a degree in Mickey Mouse now, probably.
This is the point. No one is listening.
Outlier in Europe, when university fees are usually nil or £1,000 to £2,000 elsewhere in Europe.
Well, Scotland even. I mean, you're subsidising the Scottish students in England, English taxpayers.
Sometimes I wish my parents threw me up Hadrian's Wall. You know, I would have had a better life.
You could move to Scotland and can't you just move to Scotland? No.
It's the English. The English get discriminated against.
Well,
in fact, there was a time with the Scottish system of fees where the only people who paid full fees were English, Welsh and Northern Irish. If you were French or German, you got the rights to the same rules as Scottish students.
I think this is the elephant in the room. No one is listening to people like you.
Pay for his university.
They're not listening to anyone, are they?
Yeah, they're not listening. The point is, the elephant in the room is nobody is listening to people like you. Neither Keir Starmer nor Rishi Sunak nor Trump or Harris.
Can I ask you this question, Philip? And I'll come to you, Cass, in a second. Is it Case or Cass, by the way?
You can call me whatever you want.
Bob. Right, so
I'm not going to accuse you of racism. I'm not a woke, wayward witch.
No, that's a really polite way of saying you got his name wrong.
Won't you be cancelled? You know what I mean?
But hang on a second. My question to you is, why has the political system so manifestly failed to deal with it? I mean, this guy is coming on the TV and coming on the radio, to whatever his name is, to talk about the fact that whatever he does, he is financially insecure. He can't do anything. Right, if he gets a student job,
trying to better his life. That's
if he gets a student job because of the level of immigration, he'll get a derisory sum of money for it. The tuition fees are outrageously high. A mortgage, even for a modest house, is going to be £300,000, which is just unaffordable for a start job. He can't win.
The only option is to win X Factor and become a pop star. That is literally the only option.
What's happened is that business has taken complete control of everything, whether both political parties here, all political parties, whether it's Labour, Conservative, Reform, or Lib Dem, or in America, it's all controlled.
Well, we don't know about reform, do we, at the moment?
Well, it is. Farage is just as much a capitalist.
But the thing is, when the Tories came in, they should have reversed and reformed. All they did was carry on with the Blairism. What are they there doing? I mean, I think Lord Monkton's right. The Tories had been infiltrated.
So we're not living in a democracy.
No, we're not.
It is definitely not.
It's a quangocracy. Look at the Climate Change Committee. Look at everything.
If it was a democracy, then someone like Case could actually have a voice. People will listen to. Who could actually
lawyers run it. Lawyers run the system.
No question. Civil servants.
I mean, what upsets me more than anything else is when I used to work in local government, people would go, I don't mind paying a bit of extra tax for good public service. You're not paying it for good public services. You're paying it for public sector pensions. So somebody could... You know, we had... With the Liberal Democrats in Windsor and Maidenhead, there was a guy who retired as a director of the council. Now, remember, he retires on 2/3 of his final salary. Remember that detail. And that's the final salary the year that he leaves. They gave him a £20,000 pay rise 3 weeks before he retired.
And what was he on? He was probably on.
He was on. He was on 100. So he went up to 120. This bloke is 55. So let's be clear. For 25 years, he is going to get what is 2/3
and the rest.
666, £13,000 extra because he got a pay rise. That is 20 years, 260. What is it? It's about £300,000.
But you all know the answer to this. How much of your council tax is for pensions? I've heard it's like 60%
it's
of it.
Massive. It's absolutely massive. All right, Casey, saying thank you so much. We are going to come back and talk about social media.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Right, we've only got 5 minutes, but we want to talk about two subjects that were really important. This, I cannot believe I'm going to tell you this, but we've got doctors being paid £200,000 in overtime. Right, I have to say, I personally think the doctors disgraced themselves for the way they walked off the pitch during COVID. Yeah. My mum and dad's doctor, 45 years old, he's self-isolated from the minute coronavirus started. He only came back when it was time for the winter flu jab, which, of course, got him a bonus.
And they'll go on strike, which they never would have done. We speak to old doctors.
So I want to talk about that, but I also want to talk about this idea of banning social media for under-16s in Australia. And because we haven't got much time, Phil, comment on both.
OK, in an absolute sentence, I can say 200 grand in overtimes for consultants is nothing short of a disgrace. And I would argue that rather than successive governments trying to look at ways of increasing funds to the NHS, maybe they look at ways of actually cutting costs for the NHS.
Look at the screen.
Look at that. They've actually got it in Hebrew. Good Lord.
Wow.
Gracious me. That's exciting.
Dave worked out how to do it. Dave's very fluent in Brit. He's fluent in...
So for those listening
extraordinary.
For those listening on the radio, they have actually put Perush Ben
Yerachmiel.
Because Andre can also... I teach him.
Good Lord. There you go. How about that? Well, there you go. Now the next thing is I need to get my ident made.
Okay, let me now ask you this question that I don't understand about consultants. You know, you go in and they go, well, it's going to be a 3-month wait, or you can come back tomorrow when I'm a private consultant. Are we charging them rent on that office? Right? Because I don't understand how a consultant can turn up to work in an NHS hospital and start charging people privately and have that bloody rent off him as soon. And you know, I'd say you have to pay a referral fee to the NHS. Right?
I see no reason why not.
Because why do it? And of course, the other thing he can do is he can expand the amount of private work he's doing in order to make the waiting list longer on the NHS.
That was the other thing. When they went on strike, they could do private work.
Yeah.
It was ridiculous.
It's outrageous. But that's what I say. And then, so what they basically need to do is look at ways that they can actually save money within the NHS. Stop pumping more money into it. Exactly the same way. If you have a bucket that's got holes in it, it's leaking water. You don't pour more water into it. You fix the bucket.
Yeah.
No, it's worse than that. I mean, I could actually fix the NHS because it's this money is not going to make any difference. The money that Reeves is pouring in is going to make absolutely no difference.
Will it make it worse?
Yes, because fundamentally the problem with the NHS is you've got a managerial level focused on treating it like a business, treating it like setting budgets, and not focused on the needs of people. The hospital is there to save people's lives, to cure health, and you've got this conflict of interest. You've got one managerial level, which is very costly, which is bureaucratic jobs, making decisions based on money, and stepping on the...
Do you know what I want to do? I want us to... So I don't know how to run the NHS. Yes. Philip is an expert in employment and all that sort of thing. I am not. But I would like to adopt the Israeli system. And I'll tell you why I'd like to adopt the Israeli system.
And there aren't many people who say that in this day and age.
Yes, but what they've done in Israel, I think, is a very smart move. Asher knows more about it, so he explained it to me. What happens is you get your treatment like on the NHS, except there are two rival companies. And what you do is you pick whichever one is best. And what it does is it forces them to improve their standards constantly. It's just a simple move of having two competing NHSs.
The thing is, we know this because it's been shown to work in other countries. So just adopt that. It's very basic, simple, but it's the sacred cow of the NHS.
To me, Phil, logically, having two NHSs, both publicly funded, and you pick whichever one is best, drives up standards. That, to me, logically works.
Andre, far be it from me, this is going to sound a little bit off-kilter for someone who is ultimately a guest on your show to start dictating the direction of conversation. But I have to tell you, just before we run out of time, that... that I'm afraid I've been put on a mission tonight because I got a bone to pick with you. Last night you invited me to join you at an event that you didn't attend. Can you just very quickly sort of say what this event is?
I think Perush is very angry.
I tell you why.
I will explain what happened. I will explain what happened in 30 seconds. We've only got 30 seconds.
We have, but you need to be even quicker than that because what you didn't realise is last night you were going to be given an award that you didn't know about.
Fantastic.
So I was given this to give to you live on air this evening. So this is from the World Zionist Organization, which is in recognition of your unwavering advocacy and support for Israel and the Jewish people since October the 7th, 2023. So, Andre, this is actually for you.
Thank you so much.
That you didn't know you were going to get.
And I just have to say to everybody, I didn't know about this, but I just... this is The Late Show with Andre Walker
over there
and Asher Gould. It looks like... okay. Here
That's
we go.
better. Left a bit, right a bit.
OK, whilst we adjust the camera, but don't worry, we can just talk anyway. Look, we're taking your calls now. It's really interesting, actually. I think this is the first time that Phillip Ullmann and Tom Harris have worked together. Both graduates of Cambridge, which is, the second best university, second best university in the world. But also the other thing that's interesting about both of them is that they've had hugely successful careers, but kind of gave those careers up to do something that they thought would contribute more to society. In the case of Tom Harris, hugely successful actuary in the City of London, but now director of the Free Speech Union. In the case of Phillip Ullmann, the CEO or managing director of the Gould Group, which had 100,000 employees, £1.2 billion turnover, but decided that he wanted to become a social entrepreneur and campaigner for... I think campaigner for a better world is... Can we say it like that?
I think it's fair. Yeah.
OK, look, this is the calls hour. You can call in. We've got two brilliant guest co-hosts in Phillip and Tom. You can ask us anything you want. We can talk about anything you want within reason. So I guess let's get to some of the calls.
Yeah.
Looks like we're going to need just a second because we've got a slight glitch.
0344 if you're listening on the radio, 0344 499 1000. You can WhatsApp us on that number. At Virtual Asher, Andre JP Walker. At Free Speech Union?
At Speech Union.
At Speech Union. And what have you got anything, Phil, you want to...
Philip doesn't know what his social media handles.
You're not a TikTok staff.
It's really easy. It's Manna Journey, M-A-N-N-A Journey.
The Manna Journey, T-H-E-M-A-N-N.
I'll tell you what we'll do, because we're just struggling with the calls, just for 1 second. Do us a favour. Give us an update on the Free Speech Union. You know I always like you to do that because obviously this is an organisation you can join for £5 a month. They will help you as much as they can if you get into trouble for free speech. Obviously, don't defend anything illegal, but if you have an argument with work and they try and cancel you, you guys step in. What are the big issues this month then?
Well, the judicial review that we went against Bridget Phillipson, the Education Secretary, against the government's decision to cancel the Higher Education Act.
So just to remind us, the Higher Education Bill is on the statute book. Labour are saying that they will never commence it.
It was passed by the Chamber.
Well, they're not yet saying they'll never commence it. They ceased the commencement, so it's still law.
Even though it was passed by Parliament.
It's passed,
which is outrageous.
I'm just going to do the viewers and listeners a favour just to explain what we're talking about because it is a little bit complicated.
Yeah.
It's not that complicated. So the bill has become law. That means the Commons, the Lords and the Crown have all agreed it is on the statute book.
Yeah.
However, every law is required to have a commencement date, which the government sets. What the government have said is, we are not setting a commencement date.
That's right.
Now, there's another example of the law. I think it's something like the 1858 Easter Sunday Act, which requires the commencement date only be set when all major Christian groups agree what day Easter Sunday should be.
Has that not happened yet?
And they've never done it. But your judicial review says there is no reason for the commencement date to never be set.
That's right.
This is an attempt by the government to not enact a law which has been passed.
Well, we now have a date. So the High Court have said, yes, you can go forward with this review. Yeah. And so we have a date. And they've also said that there's this other issue. It's very important because essentially when it was struck through, when it was stopped, the Education Secretary said, don't worry, there are no Equality Act implications.
Right.
And yet we have had cases between it being stopped and today that under the law, had it been activated, would have made a difference.
And the opposite is true. She's using a weasel words again, and to protect. She goes, it'll protect Jewish students. But the opposite, it's having the opposite.
But But this is proroguing all over again, because what happens in Gina Miller versus the British government under Boris Johnson is she says the proroguing of Parliament is for the purpose of a new Parliament to be held. It is not for the purpose of stifling parliamentary debate. And therefore, whilst the power to commence it is held by the government, that power has not been provided to the government in order to never commence it.
Yeah, so the
anyway,
purpose matters.
There we have it. Right, let's go to the calls. Baz is in Hull. Baz, you're on talk.
Hi, Andre.
Hello.
Hi, I'm just want to say that I'm absolutely buzzing about the result of the US elections.
Why?
Absolutely buzzing. Because I seriously think that Donald Trump is the guy that America needs. And although people don't realise it, I think he's really going to... You know, he's very pro-British. Trump absolutely loves Britain, not just America.
And the world, yeah, it's going to be... It affects the world, doesn't it? It's sort of a pendulum effect, isn't it? It's going to really change things.
Look at that.
Yeah, we're right behind it.
Look at these cool dudes.
Too big to rig. Yeah, Baz,
you look like a trucker.
Yeah, I do. Crazy cooter. So, Baz, what did you do to celebrate? Did you go out in Hull and that? I mean, what do you do for a living? Is it going to change your life? I mean, what's happening?
Well, I'm a student. I'm 19, and I've been quite unwell at the moment. I've had quite a bad cold. You know.
Oh, that is bad. A bad cold, yeah.
Horrendous. And those generations that ran into machine gun fire in Normandy.
They didn't know what a bad cold was, though, did they?
By the way, Baz, I don't know if you were watching earlier when there was that very, very nice young man, Case Hussein. God, how old do I sound? But
a lovely young man he was.
We were talking. No, that was not what I said.
Oh,
right? Okay. No, let's nip that one in the bud.
Yeah,
right.
Is that a euphemism?
This isn't the BBC, right? Yeah. But we were talking earlier, Baz, about how difficult it is for young people. What with tuition fees, what with a difficulty getting a home, what with jobs not paying well. How do you feel about it?
I feel like it's just another kick in the teeth in Keir Starmer and the Labour Party saying about doing things for young people. And what have they done? They've gone and put tuition fees up by £285. You know, I'm just, I don't fall for any of Keir Starmer's...
What about your friends? Are they the same as you? I mean, would you vote for Reform next time, or are you going to go for the old Conservative? I mean, what are you going to do in your friends? What's the feeling there?
I voted Reform UK in June.
Yeah, and what about you? What about your friends then? Are they minded like you?
Well,
the youth.
My friends. My friends at college, they don't seem to really have any opinions on it.
And is the reason, Baz? Is the reason that they are that they have no opinion because they're badly educated and that it's ill thought through, or is it? And this, by the way, is what the MAGA people would argue, that they're so beaten into the floor by the system that they've given up.
Well, I definitely wouldn't say they were badly educated, Andre. I'd say that it just doesn't seem to be a priority.
Do they just go on like the social media and worry about stuff like that and not look at the bigger things in life? Because that's what I think they want to do to the youth, just dumb them down.
Okay, let's talk to Tom and Phil Philip for a second. Yeah, okay, Tom. What's your sense here? Because we can talk about what you think about Donald Trump. You can love him or you can hate him, but there are a large number of people who feel that the system is not working for them. I mean, I've got, the town that I live in, and this will shock people in perhaps places like Ballymena or wherever, but there are families with an income of the thick end of £100,000 in the south of England who are living in poverty because of ludicrous house prices. And who is rich? I mean, it's just insane.
You can't buy a house on just $100,000 a year. You couldn't afford it.
We're in desperate need of hope, actually. We're in desperate need
Trump
of being able
that
to...
yesterday, didn't he?
Well, but the thing is, ever since Keir Starmer came in, he's crushed it.
And he made it worse, saying it's going to be bad for 10 years, but don't worry, it'll be all right in 10 years.
Well, 10 years, I don't want to know what's happening in 10 years.
Can I ask you this?
Yeah, exactly, on positivity now.
I think Tom's right. Where is the vision in any of this? It's all, I can't stand him, he's dreadful.
Yeah.
I mean, Keir Starmer, if you gave me the job of Prime Minister, or I gave you the job of Prime Minister, I would stand outside Downing Street and go, this is a great country, we're going to fix the problems. Not, it'll be 10 years of dreadful suffering. What are you talking about? the winter fuel payment. Do you know what I'm going to do? I'll find the money. Don't you worry, we'll find it, because we're a rich country, we can. Why? You know, we talk about the politics of low ambition. Why are our politicians such low rent? Why are they all dreadful?
Because, as you said, there's no vision. I mean, we're stuck in a system which is either conservative ideas, business at the centre, or socialist model, which is a big state. But there is actually something else which we're not looking at, which is starting to rebuild individuals so that they can start to make decisions again themselves. All our systems, whether it's a business, I run a big business, or the state, decisions are made at the top. People are not allowed to actually make choices. And therefore they become things.
You wouldn't even set up a business now if you were a person, would you?
No,
I mean, because of all the things against you.
Absolutely, and your callers are quite rightly saying no one cares for them. And they're not. There's nothing to be excited about. There's no hope.
And they know, and they don't care. That they know that we know they don't care.
Yeah, but
they don't care about that.
There's an important detail here, right? So you've got 2 Jews and 2 Christians. the religious element is
another
not
joke.
Is not the important bit. I've always said to you, Philip, as a mate, you grew up in a community. I grew up in a community. I feel that the fundamental problem with this country is community has been smashed. You know something? I'm willing to accept people having lung cancer, but through smoking as a preferential option to the pubs closing and nobody ever meeting and talking to each other. I don't love smoking. I would strongly recommend you don't do it. I always say never take medical advice from a political commentator. That one piece of medical advice I will give you. But where are the youth groups? Where are the pubs? Where are the get-togethers? I went into my local Indian restaurant last Friday, and do you know what? I was the only customer, but what there was a queue of motorbikes outside. Nobody goes to the Indian restaurant anymore. They all eat at home. The community's stone dead, Philip. Not perhaps for you and me, but for the country.
The family is also not where it should be. So it's not. If the family isn't where it should be, the community isn't where it should be. Jobs at work, the workplace isn't where it should be. We should have jobs which we love, which we're looking forward to do. The vast majority of people do it in order to put food on the table, but don't actually love what they do.
But what happens next? We'll go back to callers now, which is something you've railed against, Philip, is when we come up with a job that has terrible pay, terrible terms and conditions, terrible job security, and every single British person goes, I would rather sit on my own and die than take this job, we go, the solution is to bring in an immigrant to do it, not to raise the wages.
And that destroyed them, because Britain used to be a national community. You know, 40 years ago, we were one sort of community with different races in. But now we've seen, you know, parallel societies, and that's people have got their friends in.
And we call the deplorables too often.
It's got rid of the community, and there's no community spirit anymore.
And something needs to happen, doesn't it? I mean, we all recognise this system is broken. I mean, law, you know, your free speech union, the actual democracy, the amount of law that's been created, the budget, how many hundreds of pages.
It's a tangle of law.
It's not protecting people.
It's lawfare.
It's creating complexity.
It's attacking people.
It's plaster. It's sticking plaster on sticking plaster on sticking plaster.
And the trouble is, the way I look at it is mistakes have been made years ago.
Foundational.
Correct. And you build on a false foundation. Now, I had a case when I was in business where it was whether you pay for somebody who's asleep at work, a sleeping night. Anyway, I dealt with a big case and said, Philip, what happened is this particular judge made a mistake 20 years ago, and then all the case law after that is all made up. They literally told
because of our precedent system.
Because of the system, and therefore we've got a completely ridiculously complex system.
Well, Tony Blair, because he was a lawyer in '97, he changed the whole system, so the chamber really was castrated, and it's all left in the powers of lawyers.
The consequences for 20 decades.
Right, I'm going to have to be brutal now, because we could all talk the hind legs.
The Tories carried it on.
Right. Oh, by the way, I met up with Philip the other day, and he said, Andre, I do like your show, but you talk too much and don't put the callers through. The hypocrite.
Physician, heal thyself.
Steve is in Warsaw. Steve, you're on talk.
All right, Steve.
Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening.
I'd just like to see if you could clear this up for me, Andre, or the rest of the gentlemen there. Say a farmer who owns a great big farm, and he's got 2 or 3 sons.
Yeah.
And this farmer's getting on a bit in years. And he decides to sign the farm over to his sons or daughters
Yeah.
And then 6 months down the line, he died.
Yes.
Surely that'd be the end of inheritance tax.
7 years. I think you have to wait 7 years, and they want to increase that to 10, so he could gift it to his sons, and he'd have to do it properly.
It's the big problem is, Steve, it's really complicated because they're onto it. Effectively, so and also there can be things like it's a taxable benefit and to still live in the farmhouse and all this.
Yeah, they'd have to leave and do it properly. You'd have to give it to them fully.
But fundamentally, Steve, let's forget the law. Let's forget the accountancy here. How worried are you about the fact that these family farms, if they do what they are legally told to do in terms of inheritance tax, will die?
Well, I'm very concerned about it. When a man owns a farm, he should have the civil liberty to, if he dies, leave his farm to his daughters or sons.
It's important for national food security as well, our own national security. Yeah.
You know, it's just mafia.
Steve, stay on the line. I just want to ask Philip this question. I gave the conspiracy theory earlier, which I've made up and I can't prove, but instinctively this feels like a land grab by big business because small farms will go out of business and big business will move in.
And that's been going on all over the world.
It just instinctively feels like what you've talked about in the past, where the big businesses talk to a government and go, OK, well, inheritance tax, we're willing to suck up the costs of it, blah, 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 but they're trying to move in.
Davos.
There's no question about it. We want to promote small business. The kind of that's the business of the future, where you're family. We want families to reunite. We want you to look after your kids, to leave a legacy, and they're actually attacking.
But they don't want that. They're like communists and they're Davos, and they want it.
They're in the big business, as Andre says. They're in the big business. They want the big businesses. It's more efficient, but we want smaller businesses, family units.
The one place, Philip, when you've railed against the financialisation, when you've railed against big business being involved, the one place where the world that you approve of still exists, at least to some extent, is the countryside. This is a move to smash that.
Oh, it's absolutely crazy. And as we said, the big businesses have to go because they are top-down command and control. They don't care about the local community. They don't care the local family. They have no interest in it. And therefore, we have to move away from these large dictatorial top-down command and control businesses and bring the manufacturing back, start to reignite the UK, show how we can lead the world again, and stop all this importing of stuff, and actually start to build.
It didn't work in Stalin Russia.
It doesn't work.
Steve, I'll give you the final word before we go to the break.
Well, I find it disgraceful that they want to do such a thing, because all as it'll end up, if they can't pay this tax, the land will go to the government, then the developers will move in and start building houses on there.
Or worse still, they'll put solar panels on and you'll get, what's his name, playing his ukulele, grinning inanely at the camera. Steve Miliband.
Or let's be clear, what are they, Chiquito and Dell, are they called?
I like the sour cream
the big US agricultural businesses will move in. Asher's absolutely right. What has happened in Ukraine is a calamity.
37% of the breadbasket of Europe is now being taken to America secretly.
But as part of the deal to save the country, 37% of agricultural land is owned by these big agribusinesses.
In about 4 years, is that so?
It's coming to a street near you. Steve, thank you so much. After we come back, we're going to be talking to Yasmin, the teenage witch. OK, I just want to show you something. If you put into your phone 0344 499 1000 and you open up WhatsApp, you'll find that we've got WhatsApp. Right, now, look, I don't want to have a go at you, but I don't think you should bother sending me text messages and whatever, because all you do is press this microphone button, you hold down, you go, hello, Andre, this is Andre Walker. Really loved the show tonight. I think Asher looks a bit like a trucker and clearly he's stolen his brother Johnny's glasses. Congratulations on your award. You are marvellous. And then you let go. And let me tell you, 10 seconds later, it comes through to the studio and you can literally play it.
Oh, look, the answer machine's flashing. Let's
see
who's called in.
Come on. phone button. You hold down, you go, hello, Andre, this is Andre Walker. Really loved the show tonight. I think Asher looks a bit like a trucker and clearly he's stolen.
How dare you?
but my point is, if you don't want to phone in, it's a really easy way to get in touch. We've got two brilliant guest co-hosts, both experts in their own field. OK, let's go to Sean, who sent us one of these voice messages.
Well done to Donald Trump getting into government. He will keep the world safe, Britain safe and everybody safe. He will stop border control. He will sort everything. Immigration, the lot. He will get people back into work. God bless America and God bless the world. Go Donald Trump. Go Donald Trump. Go Donald Trump.
Alan Brazil there, and don't forget you can join Alan on Talk Sports on a regular basis.
Is it possible you had a wee swell tonight?
He's helping the whiskey industry.
OK, let's go to Yasmin. Yasmin, first of all, I do apologise because we did say last week that it was going to be Danielle Nichols who's on tonight. She's actually doing next week. But anyway, Yasmin, what dodgy fake predictions have you got for us this week?
She is a witch.
She's not. She's not. She's just making it up.
Ooh,
right, come on.
Mock it. Ooh.
Here we go. Come on.
This is something serious. It isn't about witchcraft. What I want to ask you is this. It's about Tommy Robinson.
Right.
Do you feel that the state is trying to kill him because they've just moved him from Belmarsh into another prison and he doesn't seem to have any safety, the lad?
Yes. Right.
The other day I watched a video of a podcast about him. I don't know much about him, but all I feel is he wants free speech and he's trying to protect girls that have been abused.
OK. Yasmin, thank you so much. Look, I've got a YouTube channel where I make all this very clear. I'm going to tell you the first and most important thing about this. I'm not a guy who's interested in street protest. Tommy Robinson, Stephen Yaxley Lennon has committed a series of very serious crimes. One of them is attempting to enter the United States of America on a fake or borrowed passport. How you can be anti-immigration and do that, I don't know. But OK, my issue is you're shooting the messenger. What Tommy Robinson has said is that he does not like the fact that there is apartheid in Luton. He doesn't like the segregated playgrounds between Muslims and non-Muslims. He doesn't like the fact that interracial relationships have been, in a sense, banned because you will suffer violence if you date a Muslim girl. He doesn't like the fact that there are effectively tribal areas, which is, this is the Muslim area and you may not live here. He doesn't like a lot of the things that have taken place. Now, my comment is this. We can sit all day and argue about whether he's fought this person and been a street thug on that and joined whatever. Deal with the problem. Locking him up does not deal with the problem of racial segregation, religious segregation in Luton. It doesn't deal with
It's like the same thing as he's saying smash the gangs won't do anything. You've got to actually stop the migrants. So
now, for me, I think the whole stick Tommy Robinson in prison and hope an Islamist kills him is stupidity. Right, I mean, it's unethical and immoral. But in addition to that, it's stupidity. You do not solve the problems of the lack of integration in working-class towns like Burnley and Luton and Blackburn by killing Tommy Robinson
and make him a martyr. I mean, that would really.
It's absolute nonsense. And for me, Yasmin, it's symptomatic of a political class that have got no answer other than to deny the problem exists.
No nous.
Anyway, what do you say?
You were saying earlier, Andre, it's terrorism for people to be stopping other people saying their own political opinion. Well, isn't Keir Starmer a terrorist then?
Well, they did whip up the, they whipped up the right by not coming out with stuff that we know now, and that is could be incitement. It incited the riot. I don't think that would have happened if information would have got out.
I mean, when you use the word terrorist, I mean, I've got a very specific definition, which is related to silencing your political opponents. But I think the allegation against Keir Starmer is that he is using the political and legal system in order to silence those people who want to point out the problem. So look, people have criticised me for saying I live in a rich area, right? The point I'm making is not to be a snob. The point I'm making is, there's no people getting beaten up for being white in Sunningdale, right? There aren't schools where 30% of the kids can't speak English. The problems that are happening here are happening in Blackburn, Burnley, Rotherham, and we are taking some of the poorest people in this country and crushing them by pushing their wages down, by destroying their communities, by shutting their pubs, and as far as
telling them they're scumbags,
as far as I'm concerned,
right.
if you watch Tommy Robinson's appearance at the Oxford Union, I have to say you would struggle to criticise him. Now, you can criticise him for the thuggery. You can criticise him for the illegality. But he's an allergic reaction. If there wasn't these problems in Luton, the bloke could still be running his business, which unbelievably is a chain of sunbed shops, which is an almost unguessable job from a bloke like him. But Yasmin, thank you. Sorry, go on.
Thank you. I was just going to say, the man who speaks, Tom, on your panel, he's for human rights. Human rights.
It's the human far rights.
No, human rights.
Free Speech Union. Yeah. Free Speech Union.
Free Speech Union.
Yeah.
You should join. They include witches.
Have we not got human rights of free speech?
Not really. There's certain things you go to prison for saying.
Well, I will tell you my own view on it, and we're going to leave it there, Yasmin. But I'll tell you my own view on this, which is I believe I was born with inalienable rights, and I think when the government started listing my human rights, what they all did was they then put an asterisk next to it and said, we have given you these rights, and here's the circumstances under which we can take them away. Right, as far as I'm concerned, I have a right to free speech. Yasmin, the producers have told me to ask for a prediction.
Because she's a bit like Mystic Meg, the Northern Mystic Meg. Away you go. Predictions, Yasmin.
Predictions.
What?
I think that, first of all, I do think Donald Trump will be excellent for the world.
No, for us too. We want.
I also think you've got to keep.
Just let her get on with it.
They've got to keep him safe.
Get the tarot cards out.
Sagittarius. What about Sagittarius? No, it doesn't matter. It's all right.
You a Sagittarius?
No, I'm not anyway, so I don't really care. Well, have you got any predictions for me and Andre? Anything, or for Tom and Phil? Anything that's coming through of life? Anything?
Well, one of them is definitely moving home.
Well, which one of us? We need to know so we can make the change.
The gentleman next to Tom.
Oh, Phil.
He's moving home.
Oh, Philip, you're moving.
I'm going on holiday.
There you go, you're right. She's bang on again. On holiday. Right.
No, but you're visiting relatives, so maybe that's going home, isn't it?
Can I just say...
I'm doing my best here.
What is it? What is it, Yasmin? What is it?
He's going to be buying some property abroad.
Well, anyone could guess that.
No, he's buying property abroad, and I feel as though he's going to be doing... I got the word, some construction on his house. I feel there's something.
Well, you just said he was getting a new house. Now you're saying he's construction his house.
Oh, let me explain.
Well, hold on, mate. What, you mean to sell it? He's doing it to do a rapper.
The irony is, Yasmin.
He's flipping it.
The irony here, Yasmin, is this. Rich bloke buys holiday home is almost guaranteed to be true, apart from everyone other than Phillip Ullmann, who believes, unbelievably, holiday homes are immoral. Therefore, there is no chance.
Not buying a holiday home.
It was a fair guess, though, wasn't it?
What is it, Yasmin?
He's going to be doing some construction either to the path or the road leading up to his property. I also feel around him, I see Happy Valley in America, so I do feel he's going over to America, and I also feel around him that he should be in the government sorting out.
No, he agrees with those last things. Yeah, he agrees
all right. Prediction for Ash.
Anything for me coming through, Yasmin? They want to know what's going to happen to me.
Who's this for Ash?
Yeah.
You need to learn to relax, and if I were you, Ash...
I know, I'm not relaxed enough, man.
If I was you, I'd go to a Turkish bath and get your hair done nice.
I just had it done with my neighbour, did it, and I love a Turkish bath. But I do need to. I'm too on edge. I'm too on edge all the time.
Right, relax. Oh,
I need more relaxation, man.
Oh, let me tell you, I've walked past the smoking area. Can I tell you? There's plenty of relaxation.
That's not true. I do not do any of that. I had it at a party once, but I didn't inhale. I ate it. No, I didn't. Anyway, look, give us a ring.
Yasmin, thank you so much. What makes me laugh about Yasmin is the allegation against Yasmin is she makes generic comments. So basically, she was told that you had a company with a turnover of 1.2 billion, and she said, "You've probably got a connection to America." Well, yes, that's obvious. Right, guaranteed.
You're going to build a new path. Well, a few million quid. I'll have a path every week.
Philip's wife is going to demand some crazy paving. Okay. And also, you're going to buy a home abroad, which would have been true of almost everyone other than you. Okay. We will be back in a moment with Paul. OK, we've got a load of voicemails in, I think, so let's just go with, I guess...
Ricky's there and Dan, isn't it? Is it Dan and Ricky?
Ricky, yeah, Ricky.
Ricky!
I don't know what to do, Dad.
All right, mate.
All I want to say is, Philip for Prime Minister.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah, man.
Who's in your cabinet?
Nobody currently in Parliament.
Yeah,
look, I mean, why don't people like you bother with politics? Or like us, I guess.
The trouble with the system is it's broken. It's just broken. And I've been involved a bit recently. I've seen how neither party, none of the parties are actually listening to people. They're not actually... And the whole process doesn't require listening. It creates ridiculously complex laws, and therefore we have to do a reset. We have to start saying...
I don't want to say this in a crass or in a way that... But I think it's fair to say that you have decided there was an option to enter Parliament, and it's an option that you've effectively declined.
No, I want to work outside the system. You're right that there's a lack of vision. There's a lack of any real... discussion of the true problems. Everyone's the elephant in the room is the economy stupid. People can't afford to put food on the table. They can't afford to buy homes. And the young people who've had these calls on their student grant fees are growing. They're all in debt, and nobody is actually listening.
And if you go in the
system, they can't start a family.
They can't start a family.
And we're talking about two different legislative houses. But look, you and I, probably in the past couple of months, have both been approached about parliamentary seats, and we've both said no, right? And no, but it doesn't matter about the detail. But here's the critical point: why are people like us sat round going, "That is a waste of time"?
Because the parties are so incestuously related to capitalism. Money is controlling Reeves. I mean, the Labour's supposed to be looking after people, but she's effectively working with business. Business has taken control.
But also, you wouldn't be able to do what you want. You'd be whipped. You'd have to vote for what you have no...
This decision about, for example, the winter fuel, which is killing 4,000 additional...
according to Labour's
according to their numbers, and yet they whipped all of their MPs into...
and they all said yeah.
They had no choice.
On a serious note, I mean, funnily enough, our producer, Chuck Thomas, I had this conversation with him. I was offered, effectively, a safe seat in the House of Commons, right? And I looked at it and went, you'd be mad to join these people. And it's not about the money, it's not about the terms and conditions. In fact, my problem is... And I hate the in the time of Dickens, right? But Charles Dickens' first job, I've made this point before, was to write word for word debates in Parliament, and the newspapers used to publish it, and people used to read it word for word. Nobody gives a toss what a member of Parliament thinks anymore. Nobody gives a toss what a member of the House of Lords thinks anymore. The debate in this country is people like us. Westminster's just a joke.
So you have more power sitting outside the House.
Can I tell you something? I made a joke on my show once that the woke wabbit, who was a comedy character, had more impact on public debate than your average MP.
We've got to talk to the people. The people, that's where change is going to come from people like your callers who are going to actually say, this system is not working, and they're going to bring about the change that we need, because the people have to have a voice.
But then that does have to come back to Westminster at some point.
Oh, no question.
Because
overbearing government has made Parliament irrelevant. I mean, you've not elected a member of Parliament, you've elected Keir Starmer. Forget we can go, oh no, you can't vote for Keir Starmer, you vote for... The reality is, what Lord Hailsham talks about with an elected dictatorship has got even worse. And I'll tell you why it's got even worse, because the reduction of the hereditary peerage has meant that they have filled the House of Lords with yes men. And everything goes through. It's just, it's a mess. But for me to turn round in my position, to be offered a safe seat in Parliament and to say, I genuinely would rather eat my foot than take it. I mean, that is the level we've got to.
We are an odd nation, though. I mean, we had the Cavaliers...
Well, you are.
I'm definitely odd. We had the Cavaliers and the Roundheads fighting through the 1640s. We had Oliver Cromwell come in for 12 years and completely change the system. And then after that, we went back to the old system.
Okay,
but we did learn our lessons.
I've got to stop. We've got to go to a break. And also, this is my earpiece, and I am getting it in the ear for not getting through the callers quickly enough. I'm really, really sorry. What we're going to do is we're going to come back and we're going to give everyone some time to speak, and then we'll do an omnibus respond after they've done it. OK, we're back in a sec. Do you know what? What a brilliant point from Lee in Carlisle. He makes it as a joke, but this is the way people will be thinking. The £1 increase on the bus fares, is that to pay for the asylum seekers' free travel? That's the way people will see it. They'll say, I have to pay an extra £1, and somebody who doesn't deserve to be in the country gets to get the bus for free.
Well, it is. I mean, in London, it's £25 a day a travel card, so that times 7 is, well, a lot.
And he must be announcing it to annoy all of us. Yeah. I mean, I can't imagine one Londoner who didn't hear that.
He trolls us, doesn't he?
That is just raising my blood pressure.
But I look at the cost of living, and I don't want to be disrespectful, but, you know, there are junior producers here, and I look at it and I think, you know, when your rent is £800 a month for 1 bedroom, when, you know, your transport is £100 a week, when, you know, how can you survive? It's just anyway. Right, what we're going to do is, Paul, we're going to let you talk. We're going to shut up, and then we're going to respond at the end. Go for it, Paul.
Right, Yasmin's correct. I'm Sagittarius anyway, so she was right there. But no, on all
that was me. I was right then.
All seriousness, though, but it's like what. You know, business is business, and it's all about making profit, as everyone says. But yet they're making everything more efficient. So working class men and people like myself, I find it more and more harder to find jobs to actually do anything. So we're taking up benefits, but rich people are getting richer, but the poor are getting poorer. But, you know, and I don't expect businesses to care for the working class. I understand that, because business is business. But, and I think you're right on the farming thing as well.
I must admit, I think business should be about people. I mean, what's the point of a business and be able to look after himself, make, as you say, get richer and richer, and everybody else that he's dealing with gets poorer and poorer, and nature and the land gets destroyed? It's just a load of nonsense. It isn't fair. And until we change the purpose of business away from profit for the individual shareholders to looking after the people, their families, the communities, and nature, we're not going to be able to actually change the system. So I just want to ask you before you go, how hard is it for you?
It's very hard, because I've been homeless for 8 months before this as well, and luckily I've got a home now, but I'm getting myself back on my feet. But by the way, Philip, when you brought them people, you know, the Polish into work, they're the most beautiful people to work with. They work so hard. They made our job so much easier. Anyway.
But the system, it's not fair that you shouldn't be able to find a job, that you shouldn't be able to earn a living. I don't know why you defend business. You say it's all very well, they can make as much money for themselves and they don't need to look after you, because, of course, they need to look after you. Why do you feel that business...
Well, we're only trying to build a society. I mean, it doesn't matter if we don't build...
We're not trying to build wealthy people.
The point I'm trying to put across is that, you know, you get people moaning that we've got so many people on benefit. Well, that isn't the people on benefit. You know, some of them it is. I'm not saying everyone. Everyone's perfect. But, you know, we are trying, you know, not all of us are sitting on our, you know, watching Netflix all day. Some of us are trying. I'm buying and selling on eBay at charity shops, bits of ceramics, because I've taught myself this over my lifetime, trying to make a few quid so I can go to the university.
Well, hang on a second. If you've got an eBay page, let's advertise it. Come on, we'll give you a bit of a hand.
To be perfectly honest, I don't even know the name of it. That's how I am.
It's not a good start to the business. You shouldn't always know the name of your own business.
But can I go back to Philip? Thank you so much, Paul. Once again, it's a caller who's trying and cannot succeed no matter how hard he tries.
No, it's worse than that. He's somebody who's almost crushed by the system. He's brainwashed.
He can't see a way out.
He thinks that business is entitled to be greedy and to think about itself, and he doesn't even criticise it.
So there should be a profit motive?
There should be a motive to look after people and to look after nature. No,
so it's not. It's profit.
No.
No profit at all.
No. Profit is inflationary. If you need to meet people's needs.
But people don't want to go into business for that, though, do they?
Oh, of course they do.
Some do.
Well, it depends what you want to do in your life. Do you want to look after as many people as you can? Are you relationship focused? Money is just a bit in a computer. The more money there is, the more inflation there is, because it creates extra money. That's the way the system works.
Unless some people want to make it for their own families,
but I'll get told off by the producers. Cindy is in Michigan. Cindy, you're on Talk.
Are you celebrating after you got the new president coming, Cindy? He's back.
Yes, of course. Yeah, I'm very, very happy. I went to see him actually in a rally last Friday.
Oh yeah, tell us about that. What happened,
Michigan.
Man? What happened?
It was electric. He spoke. Bobby Kennedy was there too. It was
that
great.
the 2-hour speech he made, and he talks about the bulletproof glass and everything in detail?
No. But what I wanted to talk about was how I miss the good old days where people used to be able to talk politics without getting volatile, hateful, or abusive. Right now, if you're a Donald Trump supporter and you go anywhere near social media, oh my God,
it's cancelled.
Tag team, yeah, and
people are getting attacked in the States just wearing the MAGA hat. That's what we're hearing.
And here.
No, I've had about 6 of them stolen off my head. Somebody burnt one in front of my face.
You know, it's giving me anxiety, you know, and I worry about Donald Trump too, because with all this dangerous rhetoric and all these false
but do you know, Cindy,
like
Cindy, we have this concept in the British Parliament, particularly in the House of Commons, of an honourable gentleman. And just to explain what that is, there is an assumption. So first of all, you always speak through the speakers. You don't go, you're this, you're that, to make it less aggressive. But also there is an assumption, and this is what we did in university debating, which is to say, you are not a bad person, even if you're talking crap, right? And so we're perfectly happy to say, you are wrong, and what you are doing will accidentally cause negative effects. But you're not going into this because you're a bad person. And I think there's just so much of this. He's a fascist, she's evil. There's just too much for Philip.
Look, if the focus is winner takes all, everybody's fighting everyone else. And the polarisation it's because that's the focus. I'm winning. I don't care about you, and therefore everybody is judgmental. Everybody is the law is forced onto people, and that splits people up. That's what you're seeing. You're seeing hatred, literal hatred. People being
so you are an alternative thinker. I think actually, to be fair, probably all four of us are, at least to some extent. But the number one thing that happens when you come up with something that people haven't heard before, in the old days when I was on university debates, and everything, go, oh, that's quite interesting, yeah. Now they go, oh, you're a fascist, or you're a communist.
That came from the left, though, didn't it? I think it came from the and social media making people racist.
It's easier just to short circuit your brain. And also, if you don't do that, you get into trouble.
Yeah.
If you're not seen to go straight to that.
I've said this a billion times. Do you know what it says on my Twitter? Views expressed on this account aren't even my own. Right, now, the reason why I say that is because I say...
Do you know your Twitter?
Well, yeah, I say things...
his mind all the time.
I say things that popped into my mind at the time, and if you get a tape recording of me for 10 years ago, my views may have changed, they may not have, but... it will have been because I was wrong 10 years ago. I'm happy with that.
You're allowed to change your mind.
But the focus should be on building relationships between people, between families and communities, and then the kind of hatred that you're describing evaporates because the focus is not beating people, not fighting people. Right. It's about relationships.
It's very difficult to look in someone's eyes.
That's right. I have to say to you, my dad and I speak on a regular basis about the stuff that I'm doing. He watches most of my shows and whatever, and sometimes we fervently disagree. But the good thing is about it, because it comes from a position of love. You know that it's... So Philip's right. You know, he's not saying I'm wrong because he wishes me to fail.
No, and what would be more exciting than running a business where you you provide for many people, and the challenge would be to how many can I provide for 1,000, 10,000 people and help them to lead a meaningful life with their families and their communities. What is that more satisfying than having...
Well, you dislike...
Which then carries on to the next generation.
Philip dislikes the word profit, but I say that actually the number one profit in a business should be building society, building the community. That should be the dividend. Cindy, I'll give you the final word.
I love you guys. Keep doing what you're doing.
Excellent. Well, you have a nice day, and you're welcome.
The tenor is in the post. Okay. Ken is in London. Ken, you're on talk.
Hallelujah.
Let me give you, everybody, a prediction from God in the Bible. Okay. Zechariah chapters 11, 12, and 13.
Armageddon.
Behold, I will make Jerusalem a cup of trembling unto all people round about. And in that day will I make Jerusalem a burdensome stone for all people. All that burden themselves against it shall be cut in pieces.
Have you got any good news?
It's a rough old passage, this one.
Jew, in that day shall the Lord defend the inhabitants of Jerusalem. And it shall come to pass in that day that I will seek to destroy all the nations that come against Jerusalem. I'm almost finished.
Sure.
For I will gather all nations against Jerusalem to battle. Then shall the Lord go forth and fight against those nations as when he fought in the day of battle, and his feet shall stand in that day upon the Mount of Olives. Hallelujah.
Okay. Ken, can I ask you this question? Because I think it's
a prediction.
I agree with it. I think
Ken, you're mocking. Stop the
I'm not mocking, Ken.
No, we're not. You always accuse us of mocking.
Hang on.
You're a mocker.
Ken, right, Ken, can I ask you this question? Ken, can I ask you this question? Because I think it's a really important question. So Philip and I spend a lot of time discussing the Bible, as you probably know, and I know that Tom was an evangelical at university. Look, my question is this. I think there's a great deal of guidance in the Bible that's helpful, but to what extent should we believe these predictions are guaranteed to happen, are a fait accompli?
They've all come true so far, though, haven't they?
And to what extent should we look at some of these predictions of doom and gloom and say this is a warning about what might happen if we don't behave in a way that supports our fellow man?
Historically, Andre, every prophecy has taken place exactly as written in the Bible, and this prophecy regarding Jerusalem and Israel, we are in the early stages.
Ken, can I say one thing to you? Ken, you gave me the answer. Ken, can I just say this to you? Are you not reveling in war in what you've said?
You are talking nonsense. You are a mocker, Andre.
I'm
You're
not.
a false Christian,
I did not. No, Ken, stop. No, Ken, stop for a second. Ken, stop for a second. There is no basis for your claim that I'm mocking anything. There is no basis for your claim. I think you should apologise. You should apologise. No, I'm not mocking.
You are a mocker, my friend.
That is absolute garbage.
You're saying he's a dirty mocker?
No, I think you've been drinking tonight, Ken.
There is actually war currently in Armageddon. There is now war in northern Israel, Lebanon. Armageddon is actually happening now, Ken. Megiddo in Israel.
Just because you've had an argument.
It is coming to pass.
You are a disgusting group of...
Oh, shut up. Right, just ban him.
I'm agreeing with you. No,
I'm not listening to this. The reality is, I try and have a serious conversation with this dickhead, and he has a go at me. You knocker of religion. Says the man in the bloody sandwich board, right? I mean, what's...
I do love Ken.
I've been nice to him.
He loves you as well.
Everybody.
God loves you.
Yeah, you're going to hell, but God loves you.
Let's end high with Jenny.
Can I tell you what happens? When Ken doesn't have the Ritalin, he gets a bit angry, right? But he'll be all right in a couple of weeks. All right, well, you're a mocker of religion. Nobody's given more of a platform to this man.
I'm more a cappuccino man, anyway. Jenny, Hampshire.
Just shows you can never placate an extremist. Jenny, go for it.
Oh, good morning, everyone.
We've only got about a minute.
Yeah, just to say, I'm so glad that Trump got in, because he's going to be a damn great big thorn in Starmer's side.
Yeah.
This is really going to aggravate this little, what we have to call PM. I would call him something with a P, but not PM.
What would that be? No, don't tell us.
Prick.
The prick.